discuss solving absolute value equations or equations involving absolute value. Our goal is to solve absolute value expressions or absolute value equations to find the value within an absolute value equations that make this equation true. First of all, what is the meaning of absolute value? Absolute value includes this term means always positive. If you translate it in terms of distance, absolute value represents the distance. So it will be always positive. So if I'm asking about absolute value of -5, that means what is the distance between the -5 or the -5 and 0? ما هي المسافة بين -5 و0? It is always 5. لا يمكن أن تكون المسافة سالبة. لذلك نقول الابسولوت فاليو القيمة المطلقة لأي عدد تكون دائما موجبة. So absolute value of -5 is 5, absolute value of 5 is 5, and absolute value of 0 is 0. This is the only number that have 0 absolute value. Now, turning to our lesson, which is absolute value equation, it means that we are going to have equation, two equal sides, one of the sides including absolute value, and it can include any expression inside the absolute value, x plus minus any number, and here we will have a number, or we can have also another expression without the absolute value. So we can say that the general form of the equation will be absolute value of x equals to n, where n is the number, n is any number. But are all absolute values with n number have solution? So let's check here the key concepts. When solving equations that involve absolute values, there are two cases to consider. عندنا حالتين. Case 1, the expression inside the absolute value symbol is positive or 0. Case 2, the expression inside the absolute value symbol is negative. So this case will include absolute value expression with a positive number. We have two cases, and we will see how we are going to deal with these cases. But if absolute value equation includes negative number, or it is equal to a negative number, let's say absolute value is -5. We just said that the absolute value will never be negative. القيمة المطلقة عمرها ما راح تكون سالبة. So if you have this case, the absolute value of one side and a number, a negative number on the other side, directly you can say there is no solution. Don't bother yourself and solve it. Directly say it has no solution because there is nothing inside, and after evaluating it within the absolute value, turn to a negative value. Let's see here those cases. The summary of what we said here, which statement must be true for the solution of absolute value ax plus b equals to c to be phi? And we know that phi means no solution. When are we going to have no solution? Actually, if you look carefully here, a and b will not affect the result. لا تؤثر. ما هو داخل الابسولوت value لا يؤثر على النتيجة. النتيجة تتأثر بهذا فقط. And we just said الآن قلنا إنه this number cannot be negative after the absolute value. So if you look carefully at the choices here, this one is talking about A, which is inside the absolute value. B here is inside the absolute value. We don't care about it. Now, these will be eliminated from our choices. We are not going to consider them, but we will consider choice A and C and D. If C is negative, the solution will be phi. If C is positive, the solution is phi. Of course, if C is negative, the solution is phi. So our solution will be C. That one, we have two cases. Let's see here, how can we solve these simple absolute value equations? First of all, you need to be careful and to make sure that the equation we cannot start solving the equation unless the absolute value is on one side and the number is on the other side. We need to isolate the absolute value, make it alone, and then start solving. Now, as you see here, the absolute value is isolated already. الابسولوت value لازم يكون لوحده بطرف، مش not added، مش مجموع على أي شيء ولا مطروح من أي شيء ولا multiplied by anything، equals to a number، يساوي رقم، ثم نبدأ بالقرار، نكمل الحل ولا ما نكمل الحل. هذه جاهزة. So in this case, since this is positive, means more than 0, then we will have two cases. Case 1, you will just copy the statement without the absolute value، بدون هذيل، without هذين العصايتين يعني بدونهم. الحالة الثانية n minus 3 is negative 5. So we just play with this one. We will take it one with positive, once with negative. مرة positive, مرة negative. And we will solve each one alone. So we will take this to the other side, reverse the sign. So n is 8. Done. This is solution number 1. And here we will take this to the other side, reverse the sign, and n is negative 2. This is solution number 2. And that's why here he helped you and he plot the solutions on the number line. So we have here two solutions. عندنا حلين للمعادلة. Let's check. Let's check. We will only check the first example. If you put n, this is the original equation. Let's replace this n by the 8. It will be absolute value of 5 and it is equal to 5. Is this true? Of course this is true because absolute value of 5 is 5. Let's check this one. This is the original equation. I will take the n away and I will replace it by the name negative 2, which is this one. Now absolute value of negative 5 is 5. Yes, it is. So we have two solutions in this case. Okay, let's solve this simple example as well. Also here, the equation is ready. The absolute value is already isolated. We have absolute value on one side, a positive number on the other side. So we will have two cases. Copy the first statement as it is without the absolute value sticks. And this case is the negative case. Solving each equation individually. So this will be negative 10 minus 1, which is negative plus 1, you mean, which is negative 9. And the other one, negative 1 minus 10, which is negative 11. And in both cases, we are going to plot them. We can consider that this is negative 11, so negative 10, negative 9. We have two solutions, this one and this one. Check. Replace f with negative 9. Negative 9 plus 10 is 1. Absolute value of 1, 1. So this is correct. The other one, minus 11. Replace it instead of the f. Negative 11 plus 10 is negative 1. Absolute value of negative 1 is 1. So it's correct. Let's take another cases. Here we have a fraction. And I know that most students do not like fractions, but we have here positive numbers, so it's an easy case. We have two cases as well. So this one will change once with positive, once with negative. And I will follow the procedure that we always know. And then we will multiply by the reciprocal, both sides. So you can solve with me. It will be 16. Take this to the other side, and let's continue. Everyone can solve with me and check that I'm doing the right job. Then we will multiply. So we have two solutions. One is negative 8. If you choose scale of 2, And this is the solution, and this is another solution. Perfect. We have two cases. What if you have an equation like that? Can we start directly saying that we have two solutions? We cannot, because this is positive. No, we cannot. Why we cannot? Because the absolute value here, as you see, is multiplied by a number and then multiplied by -3 and then added to 4. So we are going to follow the procedure that we have followed before. We have to isolate the variable, isolate the absolute value first. So this is similar to the equation 4 minus 3x equals 10 that we studied before. We will start by getting rid of the 4. We can subtract 4 from both sides. Or in other words, we can take the 4 to the other side. So same thing here. I will go back to the original equation just to remind you of what we were doing before. And this will turn to 10 minus 4. Okay, again, let's remember what we were doing when we were solving this equation. We were isolating the x by dividing both sides by -3. And we are going to do the same thing here. We will divide by -3 by -3. And we end up with absolute value of q is -2. Now we can decide whether we continue or we will stop. As you see here, the absolute value turns to be negative, which is impossible. So directly we say no solution. We will stop here. We will say the solution is phi. Let's see here. Can we solve this equation? Directly, we cannot. We first need to isolate it. We need to put the variable on one side. So we will take this 12 to the other side. And now remember that the variable is in the denominator. One of the approaches is to flip both sides. So it becomes like this. Remember, 2 is the same as 2 over 1. And now it's easy to get rid of the 4. We need the variable alone. We know we can see that the variable or the absolute value of the variable is divided by 4. And we can solve by multiplying by 4 both sides. Let's use another color. We will multiply by 4 both sides to get rid of the 4. And now we have absolute value of p is equal to 4 over 2, which is 2. And now we can decide, shall we continue or to stop? This is positive number, موجب. إذن حالتان, two cases. Case 1, what is in the absolute value inside is positive. So this is inside, it is positive 2, copy paste. Or what is inside is negative. So this one will change. One's positive, one's negative. While you would take the expression inside as it is. اللي في داخل بالabsolute value مثل ما هو بننزله. And you don't need to do anything. This is the solution. P equals to 2 and P equals to -2. This is exactly how to solve absolute value equations. Remember, let's take an extra example here. If you have any exercise like 2 plus absolute value of 3x minus 6 multiplied by anything. Here, for example, 4 equals to 20. And you are asked to solve. This is, let's say, -20 even. You cannot say that now we have no solution because this is negative. First, you need to modify the equation to isolate the variable alone. You cannot say that it has no solution because this is negative. No. We first, let's say even this negative to change the question. Take the 2 to the other side. So it becomes like this, -20 minus 2. And this will be -4, 3x minus 6 equals -22. Still, we cannot judge because the -4 is multiplied by the absolute value. So first, get rid of that by dividing by -4 both sides. Now, 3x minus 6 absolute value is 22 divided by 4. You can divide 22 by 4. It becomes 5.5. This is a positive number, though it's fraction, but it's a positive number. عدد موجب. حتى لو كان كسر, we have to deal with that. And now we have two cases. Case 1, copy paste. Case 2 is changing the sign. Remember, we are taking this expression as it is. We don't change anything, but only we are changing this number, one's positive and one's negative. And then we will deal with each equation individually. We will take this to the other side. So 3x is 6 plus 5.5, etc. And we will continue 11.5 dividing by 3. So x is 11.5 over 3, and it becomes 3.8. Taking this to the other side, 6 minus 5.5, which is 1.5. When you divide, turns to 1.5 over 3, it is 1/2. So we have also two solutions. Okay, great. Now we will stop here and see you in the next part of this lesson. See you then. I hope it was beneficial. Thank you. Goodbye.